Hello everybody, welcome to another PsychoPy3 tutorial brought to you by Words in the World. So today we're going to be covering how to include auditory stimuli in an online experiment using PsychoPy3. So we're going to start out by building an auditory lexical decision task, then we're going to incorporate those stimuli, and then we'll test it online. So this should be a pretty straightforward and quick video. Alright, so let's just move over to PsychoPy3 right away. So you can see I've already built the beginnings of this experiment. So I've created a welcome screen with some welcome text, some instructions, and I've left the LDT blank because we're going to do that together, and I have a thank you screen. I've also included some questions that will appear at the beginning of the experiment, and we'll go over those when I actually test this online. So let's start with the lexical decision task. So for this, unlike, we don't need a text stimuli, but we are going to need a keyboard. And I'm just going to make the allowed keys equal to A and L, because those are the only two keys I'll be using. Participants will press A for real words and L for non-words. And I want this to force the end of the routine, and I definitely want to store this information. This is important. And I'm going to call this LDT. I'll just call it LDT response. Okay, so now I actually need to bring my auditory stimuli into this. So you can see here I can create a sound stimuli. So I'll just do that, and we'll have a look at it. Alright, so I don't need this to end at any particular point. I just want it to end at the end of the audio file. So whenever the audio file finishes playing, the routine won't end. But for example, if you leave this blank, the routine will just end when the audio file does. But because we've got our keyboard response in here that goes indefinitely, it will continue until we hear a response from the participant. So here I can set the volume of the sound file that plays. I'll just have it equal to 1. And this is the place where I'll actually load in my sound file. So I'm going to set this to every repeat, and then I want to make this equal to a variable that's going to change with every trial iteration. And I'm just going to call it, let's call it audio stim. Alright, so now we actually have to create this variable in the conditions file so that it will communicate with PsychoPy and tell us what sound should be playing. So I'll just leave this here for now. Oh, maybe I'll change this. Let's call it sound stim. Oh, actually, let's just call it LDT stim. It makes more sense. Alright. So, if we go into our folder for the experiment, I have 4 audio files that I just quickly synthesized using Audacity and Microsoft Word. And so, we'll just make sure that these are working.
Salmon.
Okay, sounds good. And so I have 2 real words, opera and salmon, and 2 non-words, dharmak and jalad. And if we look in our stimulus file, so I've created just the target, so I have salmon, opera, dharmak, and jalad, and the condition, word, non-word, and I have the correct response that I'm looking for. Oh, I forgot to add this in. Let me just quickly do this. So I want to have here, the correct response is equal to that correct column in the conditions file. Alright, so now what I'm going to do, what did I call this again? This was called audio stim. Great. So I'm going to create a column called audio stim. Now I need to include a path name that's going to point PsychoPy in the direction of these audio files. So let's go back into here, and I want to create a new folder where I can store all of these audio files, just to keep this folder a little bit more organized. And I'll call this sound files. The name doesn't really matter. And I'm going to put these in here. Okay, so now if I go back here, Now, PsychoPy already knows that we're in the folder where the experiment is. And it's important that you keep all of your sound files in this folder, because if you keep them in a different location on your computer, they won't actually get uploaded to the repository online when you create your Git file and start pushing everything online. So you want to make sure that all of your auditory stimuli are inside the experiment folder. Alright, so I can go in here and I can look at properties, and it's going to tell me the file path. So I can see, I can ignore all of this. So I can just see that it's inside a folder called sound file. And then the name would be the name here, dharmic plus .wave. So I'm going to do that here. So my the file path will be sound files / then the name of the file, which I've made equal to the same as the target, and then .wave. And that's going to be the path. It's a relative path to the audio file. Now, if I'm lazy, well, but sometimes you have like, hundreds of files, so you don't want to have to type them out for every single one. So you can just use the concatenate function. And so I'm going to do this and say concatenate, and I want to have sound files, and then I want to have the value of this cell, and then I want to have .wave. Oh, I forgot my slash, my /. There we go. And that should automatically create your sound file paths for you. Okay, let's change those equal to the values rather than the formula. And now we have all of our file paths. So during each trial, a different row is going to get uploaded, and these variables will be set equal to these values here. And so this variable audio stim will be set to the audio path, and it will tell PsychoPy where to look for those files. All right. So this looks good. All right. So let's add our loop. So it connects our conditions file in with our trial loop. So we just want to have one loop through all of these conditions. It can be random, that's fine. And let's load our conditions. This is audio demo. Here we go. So we can see we have 4 conditions with 3 parameters. Now this is because I forgot to save this file. So let's save this. That's saved, I'll close it, and let's load it one more time. There we go. So now I have this audio stim variable that's going to communicate with this. So this looks good. So let's try, and first we'll save. Alright, so we're in the right folder. We're in audio demo. And let's call this the same thing as the folder. So we're going to call this experiment audio demo. So I'm going to save that. And we should see in our folder that we now have this experiment file here. And let's upload it to the repository online. Create a new project. Again, I'm going to keep the same name, audio demo. I'll just call this a demo auditory lexical decision task. And I'll make this public. So again, if you ever wanted to look at the code for yourself, you could always just search for this name on the Pavlovia platform and view all of the code associated with this experiment. So I'll create that project. And it should ask me for some information on the commit. I'll just call it first commit. That's fine. And so now if we go into our folder, we're going to have this bunch of new things that were created. We've got this git ignore text file. We've got our git folder, and we've got this HTML folder that was created by PsychoPy. So we've got the JS code for the HTML, and then if we look in our resources folder, it's empty. So that's a problem. So we're going to want to go in here again, and just like before, we're going to upload our stimulus again. Great. And we'll click OK, and we'll sync again. I'm guessing that this bug will be updated in future versions of PsychoPy, but for now, we'll just make sure to keep checking to make sure that our stimuli are have been uploaded properly into the resources folder. So you see that I forgot to do something there. I forgot to actually save, and so when I synced it, it didn't register any changes. And so I've gone ahead and saved that, so now it should register that I've now uploaded the stimulus file. There we go. Added stimuli. Okay, so now let's go and check this resources folder again. So now we can see two new things. So we have our stim file, like our conditions file, and we also have all of our sound files again. So this is actually the folder that's going to be uploaded online. And this is going to be the folder that our experiment uses when it's running online. So now we can actually go to Pavlovia and see if this is working. Okay, so I'm already signed in, so I can go to my dashboard. There we are. And it should be near the top, so here we go. This is audio demo. And so again, we can click view code here, and it's going to show us the repository. So here's everything. So we can see in our HTML file here, we've got our resources, we've got our sound files, everything looks good. I'm going to switch this over to piloting, and we'll give it a shot. So for these kind of experiments, obviously it's really important to make sure that you're controlling for as much of the potential variation in the conditions in which people actually participate in the experiment. So you want to make sure that you remind people over and over again that just like simple things like they should be wearing headphones. So these are just some typical questions I'll ask. Age is obviously always going to be in there. You might want to ask if they have any hearing impairment. And again, I just try and make this as repetitive as possible. So I'll mention it in if I'm recruiting on mTurk, I'll mention it in the hit that this is a hit that requires wearing headphones. And I'll also ask them where they're doing the experiment. So potentially we can then guess at any potential like environmental distractions or environmental noise. So if they're doing the experiment at a cafe, for example, that might give us some insight into the quality of the responses that we're getting. Alright, so I'll put my age in here. I don't have any hearing impairments. I'm wearing headphones. And I'm doing this at office. Alright. So I realized that I forgot to do something. So I've gone ahead and set all of my letter heights to the number of pixels that I want the characters to be, but I've forgotten to change that setting in the experiment settings. let me make sure I do that. Save, and I'll update. Here we go. Changed units to pixels. You can always see if it's finished syncing by looking here. It'll tell you. Alright, let's try this one more time. No, yes, office. Okay, so I think I'll have to change the wrap width here, or potentially update the size of my text, because not everything is fitting on the screen. So up here I should see a welcome message appearing as well. And so it's just going to say, so I'll just go over what I'm saying here. So just thank them for participating, and this is important just for ensuring that participants know how to withdraw from the study. So I'll mention obviously in the hit that they can withdraw at any time. But here I just give them some extra information on how to do it, because you'll have to press the escape key twice. Once to exit from full screen, and then once again to actually exit the experiment. And then here I'm just kind of reminding them to wear headphones, and then to try and reduce any background noise. And I thank them for their cooperation. And what's missing is down here I say press space to continue, so I'll do that. Now we have the instructions, so pretty straightforward. And I'll start the experiment.
Salmon.
Alright, that's a word.
Darmok.
Non-word. L.
Gelad.
Non-word.
Salmon.
A. Alright. So I think I had salmon twice, so I think that's actually a mistake in my resources. I think when I was recording opera, I might have recorded salmon again.
Salmon.
Yeah, I did. So that's not an issue. But I think I do need to add a fixation, because those words were appearing, were kind of coming too quickly. I need a little bit of downtime. So I'm going to add a fixation point. Or I guess it could be called a buffer. I don't necessarily need them to be focusing on the middle of the screen, but it's probably good to prevent them from having their attention wandering around too much. So I just want this equal to 1 second. So it'll be courier and 50 pixels high. Looks good to me. Great. I should probably adjust my welcome text as well. So I'll just reduce the size. I think that should actually be fine. Okay, and let's load this one more time. So this looks much better. Again, you can kind of tweak, maybe probably 22 to 23 pixels might be the right size for this. And again, by adjusting the wrap width, you can see the wrap width is relatively thin right now, so it's basically hitting, it's only appearing in this space on the screen, but if you increase the wrap width, you can actually expand it out further toward the edges of the screen. Alright.
Salmon. Gelad. Salmon. Darmok.
Alright. There we go. So I've got my data saved here because I'm piloting. Let me just close this. And let's have a look at the output file. Alright. So this is how long I spent reading the instructions. These will be the keys that I pressed. This is whether they're correct or not, so you can see I got them all right. This is the amount of time it took me to make that decision. This is relatively useless information about the trials. Again, this is just telling me, so this tells me how many times I ran through that condition file. So again, potentially if you're doing a task that involves getting a certain number of responses right, and this is actually variable across different participants, like how many times it took them to go through the experimental trials to get everything right, this might be useful there. And this is going to tell you how many conditions there were in that loop, and this tells you the order of the conditions in the original file before they were randomized. This is the number of trials that were run. That's fine. But typically I don't actually use any of this information myself, but depending on what you're doing, you might find it useful. Alright, so then I've got my targets, my conditions. So this was, again, everything that was in the original file. This is all of my demographic kind of questionnaire information from the beginning. The date, experiment name, and they detected my frame rate and my operating system, and that's the version of PsychoPy that was running. That all looks pretty good. I don't need to save this. Alright, great. So I think we successfully built an auditory lexical decision task. We incorporated those auditory stimuli, and we tested it online. So thanks again for tuning in. And again, if you have any questions or responses at all, or requests, this is my email. You can reach me anytime. I'm more than happy to help you out. All right, thanks again, and goodbye. Stay safe.